All right, friends, welcome back to another episode of Healedish. I am so excited today. I have my guest, Victoria, who happened to go to Bethel. So if you know the lore of the crazy culty ministry school, that is where I actually think I did meet you at a party one time. I don't know if you remember this, but yeah, welcome to the show.
That's really funny. My brain's trying to go back. I feel like I blocked so many things out from that time.
I think it was at somebody's house. I do recognize you, but you ended up submitting and you knew Sam, who y'all know is the somatic therapist who came on a few episodes back. And yeah, your story was just crazy when I was reading the submission. And we're definitely going to get into a lot of the, I don't even know, how would you describe it?
Insanity?
I don't know. Insanity, the unlicensed counseling that you ended up doing through some interesting programs, and yeah, just some of the experiences you had with Bethel. So welcome. And I was hoping that we could just get started by you talking about what type of religious system you were raised in.
Yeah. So I started out being raised in like a Methodist church. And then I think we went to a Presbyterian church. And my dad died when I was 2 on our way home from church. And so church has always just been like a really big part of our lives. But it was much more like, it was in Powdersville, South Carolina. So it wasn't political. Like these were tiny, small churches. Like it was just sweet, you know. I'm sure everybody talked behind each other's back, but it was just like a sweeter environment. And then we moved to Nashville when my mom got remarried. And when she divorced him, we ended up in a pretty charismatic church. It's called like Word of Faith, that's like a movement and a branch off like the Vineyard movement.
I feel like I've heard of it. And I think I went to a Vineyard church growing up.
Yeah.
Early memories.
Yeah.
But.
And so very charismatic, like spoken tongues. People would like fall out in the Holy Ghost. People would like run around the space and like fall out. And so honestly, when I went to Bethel, I was like,
Flags?
No flags. We didn't do flags. But it was like a full gospel church. So just the whole vibe was different. Like I didn't know any, like who I listened to was like Yolanda Adams and Kirk Franklin and Nicole C. Mullen. Like I had no idea.
Yes.
I mean, I knew who Michael W. Smith was, but like that's kind of it just because he's from Nashville. But definitely grew up with like idolizing the person on stage. And now I can look back and see that like the pastor I had growing up, like definitely had some narcissistic tendencies. And it was very like all about him and it was a show. And like as a kid, I didn't really see that. But I think I was really primed to go into environments where the speaker was kind of God in a way. And they had the highest and like crazy stuff. Like I remember growing up, I was on stage because I sang like on the worship team. And I think I was like 13 and the pastor just starts going, we have to call somebody out in this church, and like kind of goes through biblically like why we would do that. Like you call them out privately, you call them out maybe with one other person, and then we have to call them out publicly. And then he turns to the dude that's playing the piano on stage and tells him he has to leave the church. Like we're standing on, and I just have like tears like pouring down my face. Like I think it was something about money. Like I think he was borrowing, but on it, like I don't know the full truth. Like that's what I heard. It was like maybe he was borrowing money and not giving it back to people. And we were kind of in like a lower income area. So, but it was so like that kind of like, I think it was abusive to all of us, like in mocking him and how all that happened. Like, I mean, he had no idea. And you just like heard the music stop being played. And I mean, it was so weird. So
cinematic. Oh, yeah. No, and that type of culture tying in with what you already said of you put them up on this pedestal and it's kind of like they own the show. So if they're up there and they're saying, this is how we do things, man, that is so cringy, him playing the piano and just the music stopping. And I saw this video, somebody tagged me in it, maybe I'll stitch it at some point, but something similar happened where this woman called out one of the background singers in church on stage, and she made her leave for, I think, giving somebody a hug. I don't even know what it was. It was so strange, and she just awkwardly gave her mic back and walked off stage. But this is a thing that they will do from the pulpit. And
then we had a
like
prophet, I put in quotation marks, come through and tell somebody that I think his wife was cheating on him and he needed to leave his wife. Like, just really weird.
That's like so not funny, but I can't help it.
It was so weird. And like but my mom, like the way she would frame it, she was like, yeah, like this is what happens. Like, you know, people of God.
Don't mess with the Holy Spirit, the prophet.
Yeah, and I mean, I was like terrified. I was like, oh my God, what are they going to call me out about? Like, I was so scared that like they were going to be like, and Victoria, you watched that Cruel Intentions movie.
We knew what you did.
Yeah, we knew what you did.
Yeah, and I think that that's something that I don't know if we've ever talked about it on Healedish before, but that fear when you're in these prophetic circles, because if you feel like the prophet can quote unquote read your mail, it's scary because you think, oh my gosh, God is going to tell him all of the really bad things that I did. And then you pray to God that you're not in a church where they're going to call you out from the pulpit for the secret thing that you did. And I remember there was this pastor, I've never shared this before, Bob Hazlitt. Do you remember?
Yes, that name sounds familiar.
Yeah, I've only met him once, but he had a prayer line at a conference one time and I went to it and I'm 17 years old. I'm crying and he said, God wants me to tell you that he still sees you as a virgin. Oh, and God. I was 17. It was so strange, you know? So you have these prophets saying very interesting things. And what if he was wrong about that?
Oh,
that
I think
wife?
he was.
I mean,
I think it was a woman actually that called this person out. And like, just to go back, the man that she was talking about was objectively very attractive. So it was like weird. I was like, are you like saying this because you like want this man or something? Like, it was just weird. But things like that were really normal to me. And so coming into, you know, Bethel and that culture and like purity culture there. I mean, literally, I remember my purity talk was like, you don't want Jesus to come back with your hand down your pants. Like, you don't, like, this was what I got taught in youth ministry.
No.
Like, and I remember being like afraid to use a tampon because I was like, oh God, like, is this going to take, like, I knew nothing.
So real.
Nothing. And
yeah. Did you get any talk or anything, or mostly just from the church? That's
my
signaling?
Mom loves to say that she gave me one, and she's like, I remember giving you this beautiful purity talk. And I'm like, I don't really, I think it was just something about like my virginity being really important to God. But like, also I knew my mom wasn't a virgin when she got married. Like, she very vocal, her and my dad first date, they had sex. So I was like, okay, like clearly this wasn't a priority for you. So it's weird that and like her sex talk was like her mom just told her not to bring any babies into the house. So I think she thought the sex talk she gave me was like really lovely, but I don't remember it. And yeah, I had like no grid. I was so confused. And I remember like even like masturbating, all this, I didn't even understand it. I didn't know what it meant until I was like in my 20s. Like super confused. Yeah. So, and because there was so much shame around it, I wasn't going to ask. And I wasn't going to, you know, and I mean, yes, the internet existed, but it was much more like I couldn't get on my phone and just like, what does this mean? You know, and all of my friends were like, God, like none of us talked about any of that stuff. And so it was weird. Like there was no conversation that felt comforting. It just all felt like this is really bad. And the worst thing you could do is get pregnant. But I didn't get any tools around how not to do that other than just don't have sex.
Yeah. It felt like premarital sex was the worst sin you could possibly commit in the church. And then, yeah, as far as the tampons, I've totally heard that before. People not knowing if that takes their virginity and their parents even telling them that it would. Or that they shouldn't get a pap smear. I mean, it's sad, the lack of education that sometimes, I won't say all the time, but sometimes goes around in these circles because it's a lot. And I think people don't realize how confusing it is as a child to not know about your body.
So confusing.
And,
Like
yeah.
so confusing. So I was there, I think, until I guess I was like 18, but it was kind of in and out. Like once I started high school, I was a big theater geek, and so I was doing the plays and at play rehearsal all the time, and I was like so overscheduled. Like I was in every AP class, every honors class, everything. So church, I didn't do that much, but like my mom was she was in ministry school when I was in high school. And oh yeah.
Oh, wow. Was it something like
It was
Bethel? Kind of just a side
kind
thing?
of, it was at the church we went to. So, I mean, she was at that church every single day. And it was and like she didn't have a job either. Like, and my dad had passed away and she was living off his Social Security. And like, there were times we were struggling financially, and the pastor was like, if you put God first, like, he'll take care of everything. And I'm like, you're literally having this woman who has 2 children, not working, encouraging her to give more and more money, more and more time, and
It's
not
fine.
invest in herself and in her future. I mean, like and then I think it all kind of ran out, and she had to finally go get a job when I was like 16, teaching again. But it was crazy. It was like the fact so that was very normal to me. Like the idea that you would just sacrifice your time, your energy, your money to God, and he would take care of it. So that kind of prepped me for Bethel and what happened there.
Yeah, and also the idea that God will just come through and give you money. We can talk about it more when we get to the Bethel section, but the fundraising and all of that, I mean, there was a lot of lack of working going on between Bethel students, and a lot of sending out support letters and asking people to financially support you as you are doing these
I know, and I
ministry
feel so bad
schools.
about that. Like all the people that gave to me, I'm like, oh God, I hate that I ever asked you for any money.
Yeah. No, it's hard to look back on. I didn't for the school, but I definitely did for mission trips. And I hate when I see people that I went to high school with, and if I click on the message from Facebook, oh my gosh, it's just me either trying to get them to join an MLM or asking them to support my mission trip. It's so horrible. It's so cringe. I hate it.
Yeah. That's real.
But it was very
So
normal. It was very
and
normal.
so normalized that like
Yeah.
this, and also that they're giving to something. So like, don't you want to invite them? And that was always like the rhetoric my mom would say. She was like, but I know this person is, even like growing up, like we would have people that like tithe to our family that would like send us like a couple $100s a month. And my mom was like, felt guilty about it sometimes. And then our pastor, she would just be like, well, that's opening a door for God to give to them. And it's just, and kind of is just sleazy and gross when you think about it. But at the same time, like, I'm like, yeah, but my mom was a victim of this and she was trying to figure this out. And so of course she's not going to turn away money, but it's just this like weird loop that starts to happen.
And I mean, she was in a tough
Yeah.
spot. So if someone wants to help, that's fine. You know what I mean? But
Totally.
it's the idea of not doing what you can, and just kind of relying that God is going to provide the finances to survive off of. But what did you decide to do after high school, and how did you even end up going the California route?
Okay, so this I don't think we talked about this part at all. So I went when we chatted. So I went to MTSU which is Middle Tennessee State University for college, and I majored in vocal performance and was studying opera. And at that point, I was like, whatever with the whole Christian thing. Like I was drinking and partying and having sex and doing whatever I wanted to do. And I was not doing it in a way that was like experiment college kid. I was doing it in a much more like, I am in a lot of pain, like, because I had never really processed losing my dad. Like I was in a lot of pain, and I was making a lot of really not safe choices, getting into cars with people that were like, there's one point I'm like, I have no idea how I didn't die, like in that car that night. Like this person was out of their mind. And that I did that over and over and over again. And I think I really scared myself, and I had like I didn't get arrested, but like I'd gotten in trouble for drinking underage and got put on probation and had to go to AA and like all this stuff. And I think that just really scared the crap out of me, because I was like, and you're also in an environment where you're auditioning and you're constantly being critiqued. So like I would get up on stage and teachers would critique my weight, what I was wearing, the way I sounded. Like if you got sick, your grades got docked. Like I was smoking cigarettes, which is terrible for your voice. And like they could, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And they could tell. And it was, I'm not saying like I should have been doing any of that, but it was just, it was like being under a microscope while grieving and not understanding. And then also I was coming to terms with like, oh, I think I might be gay. I don't think I'm straight. I don't know how to deal with that at all. I'm in an environment, I'm in the South, which is like not really, you know, queer friendly. And so it was just a lot of, yeah, compulsively using drugs and substances and sex to like escape what was going on. And then, and I like really want to veil this like with love because of this person. Like I really do think really like, I don't know. It's hard for me to talk about this part, but it's the connector, so I kind of have to. So there was a woman that she was getting her master's when I was getting my undergrad in opera. And I think we were on like a voice trip or something together, and she was like in her 40s, and she was like, nobody's going to want to room with me. And I was like, I'll room with you. I don't care. You seem cool. And she like gave me a prophetic word and told me, she's like, I see you like a red rose in the middle of a field, and like God sees you and loves you. And like, it wasn't shaming. Like it was actually like a really, she wasn't like, and you're a slut. Yeah. You know, it wasn't like that. It was actually,
it's more so like the you're precious. You're called to more,
you're precious. You're set apart. You're called to more. And then she just, and I think I just was really craving like a mom and somebody that felt safe. And she, you know, really pulled me into her family. And her husband was like kind of he's the worship pastor at JH Ranch and was and has been. So that's,
Oh, okay.
That's the connection. And, you know, really pulled me into that family. And I didn't feel shamed, but it's also like, you know, that kind of thing where like you let the sinner in and you kind of let them be. I don't know. I like remember Seventh Heaven where they would like let these people like into their house that were like, you know, fringe and, you know, edgy. And maybe the girl like was getting pregnant and like you accept them to an extent, you know, like there's
you accept them to change.
Exactly. You accept them to change. And so I very much felt like I was, kind of a project for them. And they were very into like 12 steps and things like that. And so I was encouraged to go to like Sex Addicts Anonymous, which was really strange.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Sorry. Tangent. I need to know what that was like. Although I don't know, are we not supposed to share?
No,
the
I can share. I can share my experience. I'm not gonna. I won't share other people's experiences. I will share my experience of how it felt. It was very strange because I'll definitely set the expectations of what sobriety is for Sex Addicts Anonymous. And I had been in AA because I had court ordered, been told I had to go to like 5 AA meetings for like. You know, and honestly, I mean, like, there's a lot of really good things to say about, you know, 12 steps in AA, especially in NA. Like, it's community, it's support. And I think, you know, it's, you know, there's a lot of self accountability. So there's a lot of really, you know, beauty in that. And I also don't want to speak to AA or NA at all because I have zero real concrete experience there. So I'm only speaking to SA. And it like the concept of sobriety was like, you're not masturbating. So you're not having sex with self. You're not having sex with others. And it was really weird because like people would like go around and talk about like, you know, their experiences of like trying to stay sober. And you're just, and like the whole time you're just like, some of it was extreme. Like some of it was like, okay, yeah. Like, I see why you might be in here. And then some of it was like, this just seems like normal development. Like this just seems like, and it was definitely like, and I think the people that were in there with like normal development, because I had a therapist that the same lady recommended to me. And she basically was like, you have to be in 12 steps. Like you're having sex outside of marriage. You need to be in 12 steps.
Yeah, so looking back on it, you don't feel like, because I'm sure there are people who do need to go to that, but you didn't feel like that was something that you actually needed. That was something you were being told that you needed to do because they knew you were having sex.
And And also not that there is no, if you want to do this at all. And then also because some of, the sex I was having was with women, it was, same sex attraction. And it was this whole other layer of, and I don't really know what SA like as a whole stands for about that. But in the group I was in, that was seen as bad. And like being queer was seen as bad. And so,
which I'm sure there's different sects of these groups
100%.
and stuff, but yours specifically was
the one I was going to was like an all women. Yeah.
Was the goal to never
that's
have sex ever again?
I think the goal was either to, because there were some women in there that were like in their 70s that like were sober for 16 years. And I was like, Jesus, like, I don't think I'd want to be like that. Or like a long, long time. And then there were some people, and I think the goal was like to get married maybe and to have sex inside of a marriage. But even then it was like, well, are you masturbating? Because that's an addiction. Or and I definitely have my feelings on like pornography and like how that affects the brain. But like if you used it at all, you were an addict and you were like, it was just, there was no gray area. There was no room for, maybe healthy sexual expression. And like, I remember like with this one woman that kind of was the mentor that helped bring me, I was in my, I say this and I'm like, I barely got in. I was in my university's dance company. And I remember her being like, dance is like a really strong gateway to sex. Like, because your body, sensual movements. And like, there was like a lot, but nothing was sexual at all. Like nothing we were doing was sexual, but it was embodied. And so it was just like anything that even got you near sex was like really bad. And so they invited me to come out one summer and do a program at JH Ranch when I was like 22, doing it with college students. Like I was like, this is so strange.
Oh my gosh. So for anybody who hasn't put it together, JH Ranch is the place that Sam, the somatic therapist, had gone that we talked about in those episodes. And that is where she had to do that purity weekend with her dad, where he presented her with a purity ring. So JH has a lot of different programs and summer camps and stuff like that. So they brought you over there. They brought me over there for the teen
program. It was called Track 2. And you either biked 109 miles or you climbed Mount Shasta. These were the two options. So I biked.
Mount Shasta's so
I know.
big.
I was like, well, clearly I'm biking. Like, I'm not going to be...
Right? I don't want to climb Mount Shasta. I think we went there a couple times because for those who don't know, it's near Redding. What is it? Maybe like an hour?
You can see it from Redding. But yeah, it's probably like, it's probably an hour from Redding where you can really like drive up and like see it. Because if you're on your way to JH, you perfectly see it. And so we'll get to this later, but I worked at JH full time technically. Like, so I would drive up there every weekend from Bethel and work. And so I would like drive past it all the time. And it's like this very holy spiritual site. Like people for thousands, or like not thousands, but hundreds of years, like there's ritual around it. And it's actually like a really beautiful space. But yeah. To have teenagers. I'm shocked no one died.
So why did they want you? Why did they want you to bike or climb? Is it to build character or what's
I thought it was torture. I don't know. I honestly don't know. And also like, I'm a little thick girl. I'm not like super skinny. So I was like, what in the heck am I doing here? Like, I am not going to be able to do this. And I think it was like, this endurance thing where you're like, but honestly, like a lot of it, like I remember a lot of it was just like practical. Like, we're going to be biking. We're going to be doing this thing. Like, where can you get in your head to be able to do this? And this might be TMI, but all the girls got the worst yeast infections of their entire life because...
Wait, it
was also raining. Yeah. And then you have to, and you split it up into 2 days. I think they actually do it in 3 now, but at that point it was 2 days. And so we were like sleeping in wet clothes, woke up, did it again. I did not complete it. I somehow, my contacts ripped out of my eyes. Don't know how that happened, wink, wink. And I couldn't do it anymore. I took my contacts out of my eyes.
You're so funny. At first, I was like, whoa, how did that
I think
happen?
like some dust did get in my eyes, but I totally could have gotten saline and cleaned it out. And I just was like
Yes.
leaning into it.
But you're like, we're
I was
done
like-
here.
But I'm like really, my vision, like I'm legally blind without glasses. So I didn't fully think that through because then I legitimately had to be like escorted around everywhere, like on sides of cliffs. So, you know, like, cause we would go have like our solo time. It was
my
crazy. And
gosh.
then thank God we got back to camp. I had contacts and it was fine. But yeah, so I went and did that. That was only like 2 weeks. But when we're there, you know, and I think Samantha kind of touched on this about like just how everybody is there is like beautiful and like, you know, and so like I even remember this
Appealing.
family was like, oh, you know, like so many of the men, like, and they would kind of like talk these guys up. And I was like, okay, interesting. And there was also a lot of like, and this is so embarrassing, but I'm just going to like out myself. Like, there was so much like, God told me who my husband was there that summer. Like, and everyone kind of had these experiences. So, of course, I felt like God told me who my husband was when I was there. And
So was there like a specific person
Yeah.
that you were like, I have to come
yes,
back because he's there?
1,000.
Yeah, and this is so Bethel. Well, probably just charismatic or even just evangelical culture to, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like when I walked into Bethel, there is this vibe of who is my future husband? You know, everybody's really looking around because ideally you want to marry someone who is like you. So there is a lot of that. Holy Spirit told me this, but is it Holy Spirit or is it that you think that they're cute and you got some warm and fuzzies and that like feels like God?
And you know what's funny? I don't even think I got warm and fuzzies because there's a thing in queer culture, especially with lesbians, like who like I don't like using the term late in life, but came out later in life, where we will pick people to have crushes on. It's not based on attraction. It's not based on chemistry. It's literally like, I picked you. Like I would do this in school. I would do this. And so the reason I picked this person was because the woman that was like, brought me there thought really highly of him. So of course, when I met him, I was like, well, God told me he's my husband, obviously. And she had like a similar experience with her husband. So of course I was like, yeah, this is what, and like the owners of the ranch, Bruce and Heather, I think Samantha said their name, so I'm going to say them. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Like, which is also really weird. Heather is 14 years younger than Bruce and got a word from God when she was in her teens that she was supposed to be with him.
Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know exactly, but there were probably definitely some, like he was like 28, I think, or something. Like some real gross.
So
creepy.
common.
So yeah, so I think that really pulled me. And then like when I went back, you know, to school, I was like trying not to party quite as much. I think I had like one more year of college left. And I was like, she was still there, like I was still around her. So I was definitely kind of trying to like, okay, how do I not do, you know, this? And I was auditioning to go to grad school. And at the time, it was when I got out of school, I was either going to, but it was weird because like I would go to JH and then I would get like deprogrammed because I think the next summer I worked on staff. So the first summer I went there was 2011. And then 2012, I went and worked on staff. And that was when I think I was like, okay, when I graduate, I'm going to go to Bethel. That was the summer I met Samantha. She was my roommate. And she had just started, I think she had just done Bethel, or no, she was doing Bethel that fall. And yeah, and then I went back. And so it was kind of weird because like I would go and get programmed and then I'd go home and like decondition for a year. And then, so I did that like 2 years. And so I was not planning to go back after I graduated college. Like I was like, I'm definitely not going to, but then I didn't get into grad school. And my plan was, I was going to go to Manhattan with my friend, Katie, and we were going to, and she was already in grad school up there, and I was going to audition and be on Broadway. Like that was my plan. And I think I just was like, I can't handle rejection. Like, how I act when I am rejected by men, by a casting director is I use substances. And so I think I was seeing this cycle is I was like, I can't do this. Like some things, and I was in therapy, but it was just, Nashville's a really heavy city. Like, I don't know what, it's actually the hub of like 12 steps. There's a lot of the music cities there. I had grown up there. I also had a lot of trauma growing up there. So I think just the city in general felt really heavy to me. And so the idea of getting out felt really good. And so I decided to go out there one last summer, and then I was going to go to New York City. And then I like felt like that's when like the claws got in. And I think like Chris came up and spoke to the staff that summer, Chris Valentin, maybe even Bill Johnson did. And yeah.
Who are the leaders of Bethel, or they're the people who lead BSSM. So they come by, and that kind of did that plant the seed for you. And then also just knowing that Samantha was going.
She had already, I think at that point she had done her first year. And I was really interested at Bethel at that point because the people at JH, because JH was kind of weird. Like there was a charismatic part of it, but it was kind of hidden. So like the people that like spoke in tongues and like believed in healing and all this stuff, like it was kind of fringe and like kind of kept in the back. And those were the people I gravitated towards. And like now I look back on it and I'm like, oh yeah, like I was a prime candidate because they were like, oh, this girl can sing. She's funny. She's good at speaking. She's got a great center story. Like if we can get this one, like
that redemption arc,
right?
Though.
No, I mean seriously, they were like, and like so they just leaned. And also, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I was really good at framing my story as like, and I lost my father, and Jesus became my dad, and like I was really good at framing my story in a way that, you know, because I wanted to be accepted. I wanted people to love me, and like. You know, all the other girls would come in there and they were like, I kissed a boy. And I was like, okay. Like, I'm glad. Like, my rap sheet was rough compared to most people's. And I think I just really wanted, and I was scared. I was scared of myself. And I was scared of, and like, what if I could go back anything? I'd like, baby girl, go to therapy. Go get a non-Christian therapist who will actually let you explore your sexuality, heal, not shame you, maybe work on some addiction stuff. But like, this isn't it. But I think I really went to Bethel thinking, oh, I'm going to get healed, like emotionally. And I'm going to also stop this cycle because when I would leave Nashville, I wouldn't do anything. Like I know that people like at JH, like they would like sleep with each other and like sneak off and drink. And like, I didn't do any of that. Like I kind of was like, once I was out of that environment and I had some healthier coping skills, even just being out in nature, like I was able to ground a little bit more. I had a schedule. I wasn't being rejected every other day. Like I was able to kind of just start naturally healing. And so I think the pull for me to go to Bethel was, well, let's go and let's heal all this once and for all, which really set me up well.
Ooh. Yeah, because I'm like, I don't know how many people went to Bethel and actually got emotional healing. I think a lot of us got further scars going on there that we are now unpacking for years to come. But they do really represent it as, and especially if you have the past that you had where you're kind of leaning into and framing your story this way, because I'm sure you get great feedback from that. People are like, oh, absolutely, this is beautiful. God has redeemed you. And of course you want to be around people who make you feel good about yourself, and they're making you feel good, you know, and you're thinking, well, I've already gotten this amount of healing. If I go to the school, I'm just going to get even more, and I'm going to get community, and you feel valued there. So it's not surprising to me that you ended up at
and
Bethel.
I think the other thing is the big thing, which is at Bethel and J, just spiritual parents. And I really needed parents, like really, really bad. And so I was I was such an easy target for a cult. Like I was.
Yeah. Do you want to explain the concept of spiritual parents? Because somebody asked me that on my story recently, and I forget that this is not a normal concept because this is just so ingrained in Bethel culture. But what is spiritual
parents are people in your life. It's like a mentor, but they take on, and I feel like I need to explain this term too. They offer their spiritual covering. So they, you know, they pray for you. You're kind of in their you're kind of in their group. They think of you like a child maybe. And depending on kind of the level, where I would always kind of get in and be like the only kid of that spiritual parent group. Like they didn't tend to have a lot. So I was like, I got a lot of privilege. I would get invited to birthdays and like, get to do different things. And, they would call me and check on me. And so there was you get a lot of attention. I mean, that's really what it is. You get a lot of attention. You feel invested in. You also feel like you have somebody to go to, like when, crap hits the fan. You're like, okay, well, I can call, my spiritual parent and they can pray for me through this. And I think it's kind of depending on, I think it's different, but sometimes they help you develop your spiritual gifts or help you with your walk with God. A lot of times they're references for you to like do different things. They'll write recommendation letters. Like when you have a spiritual parent, especially like I had the people that I considered spiritual parents, like they were kind of well known. Like, he was a musician, like who wrote like a decent amount of songs, like in CCM and like at JH, like he was very well known. And even like, I think people kind of knew who he was at Bethel. Like he wasn't like a big deal there, but it was definitely, oh, you're connected to them. Okay. Like you kind of got in the door.
And you're worthy of their time. So that feels good as well.
Yeah. And favor is a big word. You have a lot of favor with them and everybody they're connected to. So it's honestly like kind of networking. Like if you want to like break it down, like the spiritual aspect of it, it's kind of like networking and mentorship.
Yeah, I feel like there's such a spectrum of it because sometimes it can be somewhat like the people that I had spiritual grandparents, and I think I actually asked them, like, which this is so cringe, guys, but we would actually ask, will you be my spiritual mom? Will you be my spiritual dad? And there were these spiritual grandparents. They were in their 70s. They had moved to Bethel from Alaska, had sold everything to come to the school. And we used to go to their house and they'd make us pancakes. And for someone who was 18 moving away from my hometown, it was nice to have older people care about me because I'm away from my family for the first time. So mine wasn't particularly toxic, but I do know, I mean, on the very toxic end of it, they can tell you what to do. They teach you to not trust your gut. So if you go to them with big life decisions, they'll say, no, God doesn't want you to do that. You need to do this. And yeah, it's very culty because you don't have ownership of your life anymore.
And honestly, like I especially her and the woman in this like situation, I don't really have too many negative things to say about her. I think she kind of recommended some odd things for me. Like I think she was really concerned about my like sexuality and definitely when I started deconstructing, I think she was really worried about me. But I didn't feel a hyper level of control there. And so it's kind of hard. And I like really loved her children. Like I was in her daughter's wedding and like I know I hurt them. I think just kind of I'm just kind of walking away and not giving a ton of explanation. And I just think as I'm saying this story, I'm like, there's a part of me that still kind of wants to protect them because especially her, I didn't experience abuse from her. In fact, I think part of the reason, and we're going to get into this later, part of the reason I was able to kind of see what was going on was because I was like, these people over here don't control me like I'm experiencing here. They're not withdrawing love and affection and connection when I don't do what they want. So, even though I think I was very enmeshed in their family, there was probably some unhealthy codependent dynamics there. Like, I think there was some good intent of like, I genuinely wanting like this girl who like doesn't really have family and like, my mom is my mom and has her own issues. And so like, I really needed that. And so it's weird. It's hard because like there are some good things and there are some positive, but like if you look at it as a whole, like what did the whole thing lead me to? It wasn't great.
Yeah. And I think that that's something that a lot of people have a hard time with is the nuance of these conversations because it's so easy to say black and white. Oh, it was so weird to have spiritual parents and it was all bad and it was so traumatic. And for some people it is, but sometimes there are good parts to it and you kind of like have to wrestle with that in your mind and and look back and say overall it was not healthy, but you don't necessarily think that they were actively attempting to harm you. Although I'm sure that there are some spiritual parents who were or did have bad intentions, for sure. Yeah, but how did you end up applying to Bethel, and what was the application process like? Because I had to write a little purity plan, and I was put on probation.
I was listening to your first episode, and even when I was at Bethel, people were like, how did you get away with that? And I'll get into why I think I did. Yeah, so the application, I think I'd actually filled it out the year before. I think there was like a part of me that's like, I'm not going to finish college and I'm just going to go straight to Bethel. Thank God I didn't do that. I mean, because I use that opera degree so much, but still, like, I'm glad to
At least you say you have it. You know, I'm like, no, I didn't go to college. I went to a cult, but I learned so much.
Honestly, classical music is kind of a cult on its own. That's a different conversation. But yeah, so I applied, and I think I went one time. Like, a friend of mine took me down. She was like local. She lived near JH. She was like local to Etna. And so she drove me down to a service, and I was like, okay, like this is, I think Bill spoke that day. And I was like, definitely, like, this is where I want to be. This is what I want to do. So I applied. I'm really good at that kind of stuff. So I wasn't worried about it. And I knew I was like, I'm really good at like veiling my story in a way. But like, I was honest. They were like, when's the last time you engaged in a homosexual relationship? I was like, 2 months ago. When's the last time you smoked weed? 2 months. Pretty much right before I got to JH, all those things. So like, I just was honest. I was like, and I said everything. I was like, I've looked at pornography. I've done this. I've drank. I haven't done it in the past 2 months, but that's because I've been on a property with no internet access and no access to real life. So,
haven't actually tested any of this
but
out
so far
yet.
we're good. And that was also kind of the thing you'd think. You're like, oh, I got redeemed. I got healed. And, oh yeah, when they used to pray for the virginities to all be restored. That was,
my gosh. Yeah. Absolute insanity.
And so, yeah, I applied, and quickly, they were like, because I was, I was close enough that I could drive down. And I think it was like a group of us were all applying from JH. And so like we all drove down, we did our interviews, we like hung out in Reading. And the person that interviewed me, bless his soul, I do not know how old this man was. He was probably, I don't know, 80s maybe. Like he was, real sweet man. I think that year was his last year being a pastor. I know he passed away while I was at Bethel. And he just like kind of looked at my application and was like, yeah, I'm not worried about any of this. It just kind of, I don't know. I think he might have just been not all there. I think that's probably what was going on, and he just didn't care. I don't know. But they did not put me on any type of purity plan. They didn't ask me about anything about, I know.
That is so shocking to me, because on my application, I like hadn't done anything. I was so sheltered, except for the fact that I had slept with my high school boyfriend, and it had been like 3 months. But I was like, no, but I went to a conference and I broke up with him and I got saved. But no, I was on a strict purity plan where I had to email this guy in his 20s and let him know if I had touched myself that summer.
Ew.
No, exactly. I'm like, that's not normal. So, I mean, I'm glad that you didn't have to go through that, but it's so funny. I guess it just depends on who
I literally think that was it. And I think he just didn't. And his wife was, it was funny because I first got in there and he goes, well, my wife's in here too, because, your application. And I was like, what do you think I'm going to do in this interview, dude? He totally said that. And then I remember he told me that I was like the woman. He saw me that I was like Rahab. I don't even know about Rahab, but I was like Rahab in the Bible. No idea what that was in. I know.
We gotta Google that later. I'm like, I don't know my Bible enough.
And I'm pretty sure it got compared to Mary Magdalene many a times while I was there, which now I'm like, thank you. She was like the coolest. Now that I've like really researched her.
But they didn't do anything. He felt say that his wife was going to be in the room, because what they're implying here is that you're not safe to be alone with a man. And I have heard that rhetoric when we were at Bethel. So I'm surprised, but I'm not surprised, but I've also it's been so long since I've been around that thought process that it would be unsafe for a man to be in the room. Yeah, you're in the room with this 80-year-old man and you're going to attack him during your interview.
And that was honestly, and this is where I don't think I have this fully like figured out in my head or processed, but I think as somebody that had like, I think the men treated me a little differently, and the way even some of the leaders that knew things about me, like the way they interacted to me, the way they talked to me about sex, the way it was a little weird. It was a little like, oh, and I don't know. I never experienced anything that was like, there were some things that were said to me and talked to me about that I definitely think were inappropriate, but like nobody ever made a move on me, like nothing like that. But there was definitely kind of this sense of like, I wasn't treated as like this delicate flower that I feel like people around me were treated. Like I was kind of treated a little bit as like, well, yeah, but you've done this and even like with peers, like the vibe around me was just different. And even though like from the time, and I can honestly say from the time I got to Bethel until the time I left, I had never had sex with anybody. I probably drank some, but I was over 21. Like I wasn't like I'd have a glass of wine when we went out. I never did anything that would have gotten me kicked out of school. So it was weird that I was still getting treated like that, like treated like I kind of felt like, a little bit like the Jezebel. Like I just felt like that vibe was around me. And maybe some of that's my own perception of what was going on, but I could just tell. And and honestly, I think that made it harder. Like I didn't date the whole time I was at Bethel. I like had some crushes, but like I didn't really have any interest in really dating anybody. And I kind of felt like the whole time I was seen as like, well, yeah, but you don't want her. Like she's tarnished, she's dirty, she's whatever. And it was even weird because like the leaders that I worked with for a long time, like I was like the oldest girl, and they would set everybody up with people. And like I never got, like they never mentioned anybody. They never set me up with it, which honestly, thank God. Like, but it was just weird. It was different, and I was treated different because of that. So like in a way, I think it probably protected me. But it was definitely like, it was not like, oh, we see you as pure. It was like, no, you're tainted and we see you like that.
Yeah, but I could see how that doesn't feel great because they're setting people up, and then you are kind of seen as you're not worth being set up, So it definitely feels like you were seen differently. And I felt that same way in my second year. I felt the same sort of signaling that because of my past with that guy in first year, that I was not like cream of the crop to date at Bethel.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what was your first and second year like at Bethel? Aside from people trying to grow back virginity.
It was, it was really interesting because I feel like my first year there, I was still really connected to my own gut and my own knowing. So I remember and we'll call her Jess, my revival group pastor first year, first gut feeling when I met her, I was like, like my whole body said, no, do not like you, not into you. Because like the first way I met her was, she literally called it love bombing, which is a tactic in cults. Like and I'm sure you remember like things like that, where you'd go through a hug tunnel or a love tunnel. That's love bombing. Like you're getting, as soon as you meet somebody, you're getting just poured down, flooded. And I just remember that I cried so much, like whenever anyone hugged me, like when anybody, and some of it was sweet. Like some of it was like one of my really good friends, we'll call him Joel. I like am really cognizant of like, I just don't want to out people and who they are. One of my really good friends, like I remember every time he hugged me for like a year, I'd cry because it was like the first time I had felt like safety from a man who like, it didn't feel sexual and it didn't feel like, it really just felt like a friend. And like really hugging me too. Like it wasn't like a side hug. It was like, I'm really hugging you. But I just felt bombarded all the time with like all this love and all this affection. I was like, you don't know. And so I was really skeptical. Really my whole first year, I remember, and I just like, I have ADHD. So like sitting in class was really hard. So I'd leave a lot. Like I kind of was like the worst student, to be honest.
It was a lot
So
of school.
much.
I didn't leave during class, but I do know at least in second year, I
Oh, yeah.
used to go scan my card for
Oh, yeah.
church and leave because you have to imagine, guys, when you are sitting and listening to sermons for hours upon hours for years, it's a lot. It is.
And if you're
quite a lot.
somebody that is, I mean, even just if you're sympathetic, if you're like sensitive to, emotions, like it's a lot. But as somebody like, I'm neurodivergent, I'm autistic, I'm ADHD, like all of that emotion and people and stimulation around me, even just the lights in the Civic Center. I remember like I couldn't sit in there. Like it would make me nauseous. And I was just like, I just can't. And I didn't really understand. And I thought, and of course, I made it spiritual. I was like, oh, I'm feeling the spiritual. And I was like, no, I think because I had the same stuff go on in college. Like I was like, no, I was overstimulated and I just didn't know how to handle it. But there was just a lot of love. And I remember I also had the experience in first year of like, tell us your deepest, darkest secret. And we're all gonna, crowd around you. So there was a lot of bonding in a really weird way. And
without any sort of
No.
safety
Yeah.
behind it. The idea of go up in front of the entire revival group and tell us your deepest, darkest secret. And then, some of those where I watched gay porn. Oh my gosh, let's all go hug them. We love you, but like
Right.
never do that again.
Exactly.
So it was very
and
interesting.
I remember when I go back, we had like a honoring the men week and an honoring the women week. And I remember for the honoring the women, we all got dressed up and went to this banquet, and the men told us how beautiful we were standing in front of the mirror. Like, you're the girl everyone notices when you walk in a room. And you start comparing notes, and we're all the girls that everyone noticed.
They said the same thing to
all
every
the same
single
thing.
person.
And so I'm coming in there kind of sus and kind of okay, I was bought in to an extent, but I remember the thing I kept getting told, you have a spiky jacket on. You
I was told something similar. I'm not going to get into it, but that's so interesting. I got told I was a porcupine.
Yeah, you have a spiky.
Yeah, so you
have a spiky jacket. You're not. And now looking back on it, I was like, what that was my intuition and my gut feeling not safe in this environment. And was kind of like they thought it was funny that I was really sarcastic and funny, but also you got a spiky jacket. You need to get in touch with your softness and
your femininity.
Yes,
I'm
my
sure.
femininity. And I know gender, a lot of that. And I remember because I am feminine, the tradition, the idea of I like makeup and but I'm also I'm also pretty masculine. I definitely go on that spectrum. And I just remember being told well, wear more skirts, wear more dresses, wear more makeup, actually probably the healthiest thing for me would have been to explore my masculinity and to explore some of that. And I'm just now giving myself permission to explore some of that because in classical music, I had to wear skirts, I had to wear makeup, I had to wear heels. And so I was very programmed that girl, female, gender, this is what you're supposed to do. And I had no concept of a gender spectrum. And I even remember Chris Valentin talking about that, women are born this way and men. And I remember being what is he talking about? What are we talking about here? And I didn't even get it. And I didn't understand. And I was why are you so mad about this? Men being feminine. I remember that was a big thing. And now I look back on it. I'm oh my God, so transphobic, so homophobic, and so patriarchal and damaging. And I just remember a lot of that. I remember Purity Week. I remember Homosexuality Week, where I literally had to walk out, because also at the same time,
I don't even
nobody.
do that.
I don't really, I remember it because I remember like that was the week I excused myself and I just did not come to class. I think that, I don't know if they did it in first year too. I know they did it in second year, but I remember that around that year, the Macklemore song came out, Same Love. And I remember I was at JH in my office because I like ran housekeeping and I was listening to that song and watching the video and I just started sobbing and I was like, this cannot be bad. Like, this is love and like God is love. And it just, and so I think even going into Bethel, I was like, this is where I have a fundamental difference of opinion with y'all. Like, I don't agree that homosexuality is a sin. I don't agree. And so that was really weird. And then having all these people that are prophets, like just pushing it into your head constantly. And second year, I honestly don't even know why I did it. Like first year, I liked first year. I do feel like I felt like I got in touch with my emotions in first year. I do think that. Like I think the spiky jacket thing, but I think really I was just getting traumatized and was getting flooded with emotions.
Yeah.
And had a lot of experience. Like I never really, I remember I got vertigo in my first year because like the carnival came and they did like that spinny ride and I got really bad vertigo and I literally couldn't sit up. And I remember like Chris Valentin came and spoke to our revival group and I like couldn't sit. And he was like, wanted to pray for me and like make it this thing. And I was like, no, it's just vertigo. And like everybody tried to spiritualize it. Okay, so this was a weird thing that happened. And I still don't know how I feel about all this, but in my first year, I had a lot of like mystical experiences that happened and like personally by myself, like in my bedroom. And I don't really know how I conceptualize it now, to be honest. Like, I don't know. I'm not going to claim that I know what it was. I'm not going to claim that it was real or who knows? Like, I don't know. But when I went to talk to people about it, I was told it was a demon. And so I was being told that like I had these demons and I was like, no, it doesn't feel like a demon. Like, I don't know what you're talking about, but it doesn't feel like a demon. And that rhetoric was just there all the time. So I was like really afraid of kind of this more mystical, spiritual side of myself because I was being told it was demonic, because I was being told. And again, I don't know what it was. Like, it's not something that happens to me really now. I have my own beliefs about like ghosts and the paranormal and all that kind of stuff. But I think that was the thing about Bethel is it's like, whether or not you think that exists, there was one version of this. It was either God or demons. It was either good or bad. It was only through the Christian lens. You couldn't question it. You couldn't look at it through a different lens. And yeah, so my whole first year was just confusing. It was like a lot of feeling my emotions. It was having these mystical experiences. I don't even know what I think they were now. And then being told they were demonic. And then also people being like weirdly jealous of me that I was having these encounters. That's what, we would call them. And like just not, it was just weird. Cause like, I was like, wasn't that what we're all supposed to be having? I don't know, like, so I felt really dropped my first year, just kind of by everybody all the way around. And even like, I was encouraged to go talk to the different revival group pastors that were better with the spiritual stuff. And they all just kind of were like, I don't know, like, it was weird. I was like, do you guys actually even deal with any of this stuff? Or are you just lying? Because their response every time was like, it's a demon, I don't know. It's a demon, I don't know. And I was just like, okay, like, how is that helpful to me right now? And I mean, maybe I was going through some sort of psychosis. Like, I have no idea what was going on, but it was just weird how it was received when we're in an environment where that was supposed to be normal, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, we're at a supernatural ministry school, so you would think that they might have a little bit more to say, but it's true. A lot of it was either 100% God or 100% a demon. And yeah, when I look back at first year, I feel there's so many beautiful moments, but it's like you said, so much flooding of emotion and just, I mean, I cried multiple times a week, probably every day of first year because everybody's, and I just want to paint the picture for people who've never been at Bethel. I mean, you are so invested in this because you're spending all of your time with these people during school, and then on the weekends you're spending all of your time with them. And the spiritual stuff lasts into the weekend, because if you go to birthday parties, people are still prophesying at the birthday parties, and people are going treasure hunting and praying for people. And, you know, people are on the floor sobbing during worship. And it's just a constant emotional experience pretty much for an entire year. And I think that that's why between my first and second year, I fell into such a deep depression, because everybody left. A lot of my friends were international. So then during the summer, it's kind of like, oh my gosh, where did everyone go? I have no idea what to do with myself or my emotions away from this environment. And I think that's why so many people struggle when they leave Bethel, because it's hard. First year
and
was
after
a lot.
first year, I just went straight back to JH. So I did not get a break from this environment for almost 5 years. Just like I moved, like I'd moved to JH, come back, move to JH, go back. So I was constantly in these type of environments. And then like at JH that summer, I was like low key celebrity. I went to Bethel. Like that summer I sang on JH's worship team. Like they do these like dumb skits, and it's a rodeo. And like, if you're in the rodeo, like you're it, and you'd perform every week. And I was in the rodeo, which, by the way, if you broke that down, I was like, this is the most racist concept for a skit.
I'm not surprised.
They had like, instead of indigenous peoples, literally had people dressed up as Indians. I'm doing that in quotation, with feathers. Like we would dress people. I don't think I ever did, but they would have the kids and everybody like dress up like that. Like everybody at this, and everybody was white.
They used to do stuff like that at Teen Mania as well. Just really horrible racist skits. And so you didn't get a break from this at all. So you just went straight into second year.
Yeah, and in second year, I had a revival group house. It was very different. Like she was a lot less like hands-on. And in first year, I had gotten, so my revival group pastor, we'll call her Jess, and we'll call her husband Nick. And
we like new girl over here.
We just decided to go with that. And I will say Jess and I didn't super connect at first. I kind of think I pissed her off a little bit, because like we weren't far apart in age. We're like 7 years apart. And I think she wanted me to be a little bit more like bought in and like obsessed with her. And I just wasn't. Like I was just like, I don't really, like, you're fine, I guess. Like, I don't really, because also I had gone to therapy. Like, so things she was saying wasn't brand new to me. The concept of codependency and boundaries and triggers, like for some people, this was like the first time they had ever heard any of this. And for me, I was like, like, I'm not really great at feeling my emotions, but like, I understand this like on an intellectual level. But Nick, her husband, definitely like swooped in and like very much connected with me. Maybe a little weirdly, if I'm being totally honest. Like we had a very like he would come to events and we would just talk in the corner, just me and him. Like
how did you meet him?
Do you remember when we used to do like ropes courses like at the beginning? So it was
Yes. So all the students were required to do ropes course before. So exactly what you're imagining. We're up there, for God. I don't know, we're bonding.
Have like I don't really know if I have a fear of heights anymore, but I definitely did back then. I like blacked. I couldn't get up there. Like I like blacked out, freaked out. And I was like, I'm not. And I had been at JH where we have ropes courses there. And so they tried to do, and like every time I'd get up on ropes courses, I would freeze or black out. And so I just was like, I don't want to do it, which honestly, thank God, like they didn't make me do it, because in a lot of situations they're like, push through, and it's like super traumatizing. And so I think that's how I met him. And it was really weird. Like I remember like thinking back on this is so cringe and weird, like kind of just makes me want to like jump out of my skin. But like afterwards, you're doing this big debrief, and like something about me like being a baby and being taken care of, and Jess is like, here, let me hold you like a baby. Like again, like I'm a grown woman, like a good $150 at this point. Like I'm like, this feels weird to me, to be like held by another person. Also, like I'm 23, I think. So there's some people in there like 18. Like I don't feel like a kid. Like I feel like an adult, and I felt really like, and so he stopped what she was doing and he was like, no, come here. And he like had me, I had never even spoken to him. And then like just started hugging me and like kind of going into like a father mode. And I start sob crying. And like it was like this but I remember like at that point there was a weird tension of like he would just kind of pluck me out of situations and be like, no, like I did connect to him better. Yeah, I know it's best for her. And I did connect with him better. And, he like cussed and I cussed and he was fringe. And like we talked about God in like kind of weirder ways. Like I never really believed that Jesus was the only way to get to heaven. And like he agreed with me. Like just things like that are a little bit like, oh, okay. So there was this bonding happening between me and him that, again, like nothing was ever inappropriate, but also like even other people were like, it's kind of weird. Like y'all's bond is it's a little weird. But I really wanted her to like me. Like I think it started bothering me that she didn't like love me by the end of, and like what I saw was like, okay, if I like connect to her more and I ask her more questions, like she'll but it was weird. I also like didn't care. So I'd kind of gravitate towards, but then she always wanted me to sing for her. She was like, oh, I want you to sing. And like I'm sure
to sing over the group
all the time.
Voice. That was a very big thing at Bethel is prophetic singing. So I am not surprised. Your beautiful angelic voice, please sing over the group and Holy Spirit will come down.
And remember, like I'd also been in an environment where I was getting rejected. I was getting criticized for my voice. So to have somebody just be like, just sing. And like, you're going to be celebrated by people. Like it was overwhelming to have that. And like, honestly, I think that kind of golden carrot of like, you can sing pulled me through a lot of things I probably wouldn't have done because I really wanted to do that. Like that's what I had dedicated my entire life to. And I had been auditioning for Bethel worship team and I did not have a Bethel worship voice. And I grew up in full gospel churches singing gospel music. And so I did not know how to do the whole, Stephanie Gretzinger thing. Like I couldn't do it. I didn't sound like them.
Yeah.
There's a very specific sound. And so I just really wanted to get to do that. And so she let me do that. And she would let me sing after her when she spoke at Bethel. And so that kind of honestly became the thing that I was like, okay, like you seem cool. And then third year, I ended up interning for him. And I was his only intern.
How did that happen? Was he a part of, is there a website or a portal where you see who is accepting
So I just
interns?
told him I was going to intern for him. I just was like, because he had a female intern the year before, one. And it was official. Like I had a badge, like everything. And he was he spoke at Bethel some, not a lot, not really, but I know he did some. He was a life consultant. That's like what, his title was. And I remember that year he was like self-publishing a book. He was launching a podcast. And I was like, yeah, like it sounded way more fun to me than like interning for a revival group pastor. But then as soon as I started interning for him, she had like 4 or 5 interns. I think I applied for both of them and she rejected me. And she was like, but he's going to take you. And I was like, okay. And then within like 2 weeks of the internship, she was like, oh, you're also interning for me.
Okay, but you're already interning for him. So do you just have double the work
and
now?
I'm also volunteer because somehow in second year, I don't know. I did something that they all liked me. Like I decided I had so many offers to intern for third year because in second year, I don't know. I had this idea that I wanted to throw this night for women and I wanted to celebrate other women. And so I pulled a group of women in our revival group together to co-facilitate this with me. And it was just we wrote nice things about each other and we made each other presents and and I don't know why, I just really wanted to do it. And because I saw the men doing things for that to the women and I was like, why can't women do it for each other? Why are we always waiting on the men to honor us? My feminism was coming out.
I love it as much as it can in that environment.
And
so they probably saw that you were taking charge.
And that was, I think people really noticed that. And so I got a lot of offers to intern that year. And I also went on a mission trip to London that year with like Eric Allen and Claire Murwell, and like really bonded with her. And I just had a lot of clout that year, which was weird for me. Like that was really abnormal, where I had not had that at all. So to all of a sudden go from being like kind of the outcast to all of a sudden like everybody wanted me to not everybody, you know, I mean Bill didn't want me to intern for him. Oh, and then in second year I got nominated for that dumb award. That was the other thing that happened. That like M. Earl.
Oh, there's like the Student of the Year award thing.
Stupidest crap.
Yeah. So I think for people who've not been in the Bethel circles, I mean, there definitely is a hierarchy with the students. And once you're in the in crowd and once you're seen as valuable and accepted, you just continue to grow and grow. So it sounds like you really had the favor of the Lord on you.
I did.
At the time. And one question I have about Nick is, does it make sense to you that he would be taking interns? Because he wasn't on Bethel staff, right? So I guess I'm just confused as to why he even got interns through Bethel. That's a good question.
I know there were some other people like that like, but that's a really good question. I don't really know. I just know that he had things, somebody I think.
Because he didn't have a ministry.
No, not really. No.
Because I interned for the Banoffs, and obviously that wasn't Bethel, but they did have a Bethel type school out in Pennsylvania. So it's not necessarily that interns had to intern with someone who works for Bethel, but typically they would have a ministry. Whereas this was more of a life consulting podcast author kind of person. So it feels weird to me that he would get
and there was
interned.
also in my second year revival group pastor, her husband, I think ran like a graphic design marketing thing. He also took interns and had no ministry. So by my third year, I was interning for Nick. I was also full-time interning for Jess. And then I was volunteering for my second year revival group pastor. And then her husband, my second year revival group pastor, wanted me to volunteer and intern for him. Now, he was under the guise he was actually going to pay me. He never did. I got out of that really fast. And I was doing like project management for him. So I had 4 internships. Like I was dog tired. And especially Jess and Nick, they were like, it was very time demanding. Like I remember being, and even just the stuff that I was like, what? Like I remember being over at Nick's house till like midnight. Jess was out of town, just me, like doing these book fulfillment orders. And like, I think he even was like, I'm going to sleep. Like, this is so weird that you would have like just, And I think it was almost this like, well, we're fringe, we're different. Like we can get away with stuff like that. But stuff that's like, that's actually really inappropriate. Like that's not okay to do.
Well, also, so you're helping with his personal business that he's profiting off of,
like
right?
making a lot of money. And I'm making and I think this is one of the most frustrating things is like, even when I was like, got out of this and tried to apply for jobs and stuff, I was like, I actually have a lot of experience running social media, building, because this was before podcasting was like, podcasting was just getting off the ground. So I didn't really even have a grid. This was like 2015, I think is when it was. So, I mean, that was 10 years ago. Like podcasting was pretty new. And
I remember when Serial came out, that's when it really kind of got on my radar. And I think that was around the time I was at Bethel. So that's not surprising to me. I mean, it was relatively
but I mean, they
new.
were in both of them. Like and at that point, Jess was no longer a revival group pastor. She was building her own brand. So like we were building her website. I was writing copy for her. I was writing blogs for her. I was a lot of times like, like there was a blog, Chris Valentin published a blog that I mean, she gave me a lot of the content, but like I ghost wrote.
Like the talking points, but you ghost wrote
with 0 credit. And I never got credit for it. Like all the time. I was doing these things that were making these people like, because revival group pastors, they didn't get paid crap. But like these people were making money. Like I know what they were charging for sessions and I know what they were. And like, I mean, I would drive down and get them in Sacramento, like from the airport. So, I mean, that's a 2.5 hour drive. And I would just turn around. I probably did that like once every other week. Like it was a lot.
Wow. And that was expected of you. That was part
Especially
of your
for him.
internship?
Yeah. And I mean, I did it for her too, but yeah. And that went into my third year because I technically interned a fourth year too. So, I mean, it was exhausting. And also like, so I felt like that year there was a lot of intention of trying to pour into us and but it was also just so freaking weird like it was all this stuff of like, here, let's have you do this thing where you build trust or you walk around blindfolded. And it was like, and to learn how to build trust, or we would stay over there and we'd tell them our darkest secrets. And it was just weird. And I remember people thought that our group was like a cult within a cult. Like people were like, you guys are weird together. Like this little group of you that's all interning.
Wow.
Because yeah, I mean,
How many other interns did they have? So I know we're going to get into this, the life consulting portion of your story, but this is before that?
This is before that. This is just my internship. Okay. There were, I'm trying to remember, because it got meshed. How many? I want to say there were 4 interning for her, and then I was interning for him, but then she always kind of had like volunteers and people that were just kind of around. So there was always this kind of clout of people around her. And you were all kind of expected, and it was just weird. It was like expected to help her build this website, expected to help doing things that are just not like,
but they're not even ministry. Right. I think that's what's so confusing to me is that they have multiple interns that are working for them for free to build their own personal wealth, because this isn't even ministry. This is, you guys are helping them run website, podcasts, do his book.
I've never even thought of that. Like, actually, there was 5, because I remember there was a 5th girl, and she intentionally brought her on because she didn't know her at all. She intentionally brought her on because she was an amazing graphic designer, and she had been designing and doing some of the covers for Bethel Music. So she was literally pulled onto our team to do the graphic design.
Wow. This reminds me a lot of Teen Mania. I had Corey come on to talk about his time there, and they recently did the Amazon Prime thing of Shiny Happy People. Yeah. But the same thing with Shiny Happy People, how they have all of these pretty much teenagers doing their business and doing their calls, and they're basically running the entire organization and Acquire the Fire, and it's all free labor. And not only that, they're actually paying to be there.
Yeah.
So it's, I mean, that's
and I
crazy,
was also,
and I think what doesn't,
go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. I think what doesn't, no, you're good. I think what doesn't make sense is that it's not even ministry. It's not even connected to Bethel, but somehow it's a Bethel adjacent.
And then I also had to have a job. So I was also working a job. I was working at the Holiday Inn in Reading. I can clearly see it. So I was working there, and a lot of times I'd work nights and work overnights because I had to be available for, interning. And like the amount of hours that I was expected to be there. And then it was also one of those things, like if you said no, and honestly to him, I didn't feel like I could say no. To her, I felt like there was like a little bit just that year. I felt like, but at the same time, like if you say no, because you also have to think about the fact, like this internship, if you don't have I did have a college degree, but at this point I had put everything since college into working for these people. So my brain was like, I have to get a job from this. This has to eventually turn into, because at this point I'm like 26 years old. Like this has to turn into a job for me, or like my 20s have been wasted.
What were you hoping it would turn into? I know a lot of people, they're hoping that maybe they'll get a job at Bethel. Is that what you were hoping?
Because I don't really know if I wanted to be a revival. I think maybe I would have been okay with being a revival group pastor. I was really good at speaking, and she would have me. So I think I was kind of hoping they would just hire me, and that I would kind of be a part of, and she would kind of talk about that, how she would build up a group of us. And the life consulting thing wasn't on the table yet, but I think that's what I was hoping for. I think I was hoping for, I was a really good writer. I was like, I don't know, maybe I'll write a book. Maybe I'll have a podcast. Maybe I'll, do all these things. But I don't know. You just kind of keep going. And also you're so tired. You're not thinking about it. You're putting so many hours and you're never stopping and going, okay, but what's all this to? Because you're just like, well, God's going to at some point intervene, and the skies. And, also they were really tight with Sean Bowles. So like he was coming and like staying with them a lot. And I like, so I mean, they were also really tight with the dude that wrote The Shack, Paul Young. So there were some people like around that you were just kind of like, okay, like this could, and they definitely talked to us about that, about like, and not all of us, because you could also tell who they thought could potentially have careers and maybe who was going to be more the background person, which was really crappy, I think, to a lot of people. And yeah, so by the end of it, you kind of knew it was like me and my friend Joel. We were the two that you were like, oh, you two have been picked. Like, and I will say that his relationship with Jess was just as weird as my relationship with Nick. And we both talked to each other about it. We both kind of called it out. Like, hey, that's weird. Why are you guys having these deep emotional conversations? Why are you guys talking about the fights that maybe they had? Why? But it was almost like we were bonded in it of like, well, let's not rock this boat. And so in a weird way, we were kind of like helping each other by normalizing this thing that probably like it was weird, and people were like talking to us about it, like what's going on there, because it did feel like emotionally codependent, and it like it wasn't a normal leader, what intern relationship.
Yeah. So what did you decide to do after that year of interning? Is that when they brought the idea of life consulting?
So after my third year, like, and this is where like, I don't know, my therapist is like, it's a little groomy, don't you think? Like Nick bought me like a Coach watch, like really. Yeah.
What?
Like and I still have it. I haven't gotten rid of it yet.
Oh my gosh, how much are
I don't
those?
know.
That's
I don't know how
crazy.
much it was, but like he asked me to like pick some things out that were like over a certain amount of money, and that was going to be like my present for the year, like my intern present. And it was just It was weird. It was like too much for what it was. And also that year, this was I think one of the weirdest things. For Christmas that year, they kidnapped us, literally kidnapped us, said they were kidnapping us and wouldn't tell us where we were going, and got in a car and started driving for hours and hours. And I started having a panic attack, because not that I thought they were going to like hurt me, but I also, they were big into like face your fears, like trauma exposure. So I'm like imagining, okay, what are the things I'm the most afraid of? I really don't want to bungee jump. That sounds terrifying. I don't want to jump out of anything. I really hate haunted houses. Like this is where my brain is going.
Are you asking them? So you're in the car, you're freaking out probably. So you're asking them like, please tell me.
Oh yeah, they were laughing at me. Like there was like, and everybody it was, I mean, and I'm ridiculous. Crying. Like, and where we're going to San Francisco, it was not a short drive. It was like, I don't know what that is, 3 or 4 hours, I think. Like, it's not a short drive. So, I mean, the longer we're in the car, the more I'm freaking out. And then when
I would be afraid that
that's what I thought. And I know that she had just gone skydiving, and she was kind of like that. Like, she tried this thing in therapy. So she was she was kind of like that.
Yeah, it worked for me.
So I was like, this is what's going to happen. And if I don't do it, then they're not going to, like, I'm going to get out of the club. Like, I'm going to get kind of exiled. And all it was is we ended up doing a freaking escape room. Like, it was so not a big deal, but it was.
What even is
it was just control.
Of that?
It was just control, and we're going to control your emotions and how you feel. And and the whole thing was, if you really trusted us, this wouldn't bother you.
But they're laughing at you as you're crying and freaking out. No, that's what I don't understand. There was somebody else who came on Heeldish, Alicia, and she had a similar initiation kind of thing. It was a bit different because she was in high school, but she was crying through tears, and her youth pastor told her that she needed to jump in the middle of the night into freezing water to go get goldfish, okay? Like real fish that she needed to go get in the water, and she didn't want to jump in. She was freaking out. And he said, no, you have to go and save the fish to signify saving your family. And she's sitting there crying, doesn't want to do it. And what I don't understand is how these leaders can look at people being traumatized by these sorts of actions or group activities, and you're just okay with somebody freaking out and you think it's kind of funny. But if this is all for an escape room, you did not need to be doing all that. It was not necessary at all. Why wouldn't you say, we're going to do a fun group activity in San Francisco, but we want it to be a surprise?
They did. They did say at one point, like, it's not scary, it's not bad. But I was like, but I didn't trust them because they had done other things like that. And in the next year, they did something that was traumatizing to everybody. So my gut was not wrong.
Yeah.
But like that, and I mean, at that point, I was being so controlled with not just, my choices in life, but also, like, I remember she told me, you have to fast sarcasm for a month. You use humor to deflect emotions. You have to fast sarcasm. And so don't be you. And I remember, like, actually, like, crying and having a breakdown because I felt like I couldn't speak. Like, I felt like I couldn't. And I remember Nick and his podcast partner, I was, like, in a room with them and they were kind of teasing and picking on me. And I was like, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do because I can't be sarcastic. I can't be funny. I can't use any of my coping skills that I've used up until this point to get through. So, I mean, and it's silly as that sounds, like, that's a deeply, weirdly psychological level of control to try to have over somebody of, like, so.
Yeah. No, it's not okay because they're telling you that a part of you is not acceptable, and that you need to not do this.
Yeah.
So it's just another layer of control. I can definitely see how people were telling you at the time, and I'm sure even more as we're going to get into, that it felt like a mini cult inside of our larger cult.
For sure. And so then, from there, I went back to JH again. And I had started, and I think this was honestly probably the best thing that could have happened, is I started directing musicals at a theater company in town that had no association to Bethel. It was actually ran by Mormons. So, like, but as weird as it sounds, they were less weird. They were so much less weird.
Well, I'm
so much less controlling. I was like, I love how I've always been told Mormon, this is a cult. And I'm like, this feels I mean, I don't know. I didn't go to this, I wasn't, but they weren't trying to control me and actively, like, pull me in. Like, it was very much like, so that was probably the best thing that happened as I started having, but I think that's actually when I started noticing, this is kind of weird because, like, I would direct these plays, like, spend months of my time in the summer doing this, and, like, Nick and Jess never came to one of the shows, like, where I was directing these kids. And, like, things like that, I was like, that kind of sucks, guys. Like, I'm so supportive of everything you do. And it was just like, if it wasn't about them, it didn't matter. And I kind of started picking up on that. And then that summer, this is where the life consulting comes in. Nick called me or texted me or something, I don't know. And it was like, I have these... This is still, like, so crazy to me. I have these two girls who are struggling with same-sex attraction that I want you to start meeting with. And they were sleeping together. And I was like, okay.
What are you going to do?
I was literally like, do you just want me to start meeting with them? And he's like, yeah. He's like, you have a history with some of this stuff. And I'm like, okay, like, I don't even know. And I mean, there was no training, there was no prep, there was no anything. Just, I think they couldn't afford to counsel them
through this.
And also, I was really confused.
So
that's the other thing. I was really confused. I was like, am I supposed to, like, get them to not do this? Like, what do you want me to counsel them about? Like, I was a little confused. And he was like, just meet with them. And so again, like, I wanted a job. I wanted to prove myself. So I did. And I met with them together. I met with them separate. And I mean, at one point, one of the girls, like, came up and, like, slammed the door and yelled at me and left the office. Of course she did, because she was experiencing crazy emotions. And she has this unqualified human that's like, I don't blame her. I freaking slammed the door at me too. I wish she had never come back, honestly, for her sake. And they were, and I don't want to get into their story at all, but, like, they were really in a lot of shame and struggling and trying to figure that out. And that's when Jess was like, oh, I'm going to start training this group of people to be life consultants. You should come and I'll train you, since basically you have now been just thrown into the wolves. Like, you should be. So before I even start training, I've already been meeting these girls for like a couple, like maybe a month almost at this point.
Are
No.
they paying you? So it's just these weird meetings where you're talking to them, trying to help them figure out the situation, I guess. And then that's when she decides, okay, we should train you and you should come and join this
that
life
I've already
consulting
started.
thing.
And I don't really, and again, I don't think she would have picked me. I think it was kind of a little bit like, well, you know, he's thrown you into this, so here, you know, come on. And my really good friend Joel, we're calling him, he was in it, and so I was like, okay, like this will be fun. And then there was, I think, 2 other people, and we had these Monday meetings, and oh my god, these freaking Monday meetings, that lasted forever. So I remember we were given a contract to sign, and the contract was a do not compete clause. So like we couldn't go and start our own businesses like outside of them. So the first thing I signed for life consulting or life coaching or anything like in that vein. So I signed that. And then I can't remember exactly. And this was part of what happened was like we couldn't remember what the original contract said because she kept changing what she said it said. And we fully trust this person. So we're like, whatever, like this. And honestly, even the contract thing was really weird to us because we're like, okay, like we'll sign it. And I think it said something like the first year we give you 40% of our income, like 40% of what we're giving you, and then after the first year, and we have to do these Monday meetings, and then after the first year, we only give you money if people you refer to us. And then after the third year, I think we kept everything. But we'll just jump to the end of the story. But by the third year, we're still doing these Monday meetings, and we're still giving her 40% of her income. So it got really convoluted.
Wow.
So this was the first year. This was in 2016. And it started out, I mean, honestly, all we were doing was reading freaking Brene Brown books. And she was like, okay, like let's talk about codependency. Like let's talk about this. And then she would have people fill out forms like once we met with them. And then she would give us feedback and coach us. And so at first we were also coaching in groups, except for me and this freaking couples counseling I was doing. I was still doing all of that alone. And then I also was discouraged from talking about that one in a group because of the sensitivity of the subject. So I was really getting like no guidance on that one at all.
Were they following up with you about this couple and trying to tell you what to say?
Honestly,
to them?
only if there was like an eruption. Only if there was like but I mean, it was definitely like you're supposed to be guiding them out of this. Like from what I kind of gathered.
So definitely not
not pro gay.
gay.
Which is also, I'm like, okay, cool. Like you guys do know, like they knew I was queer and they knew, and they had even done like versions of conversion therapy with me of like, and I think I remember one of the things that like really was like a bee in her bonnet was the fact that like I don't have sexual trauma. And that was kind of the thing that she would always say, like, this is what causes this. And so the fact
that sexual trauma causes being gay, which I hate this rhetoric because I can't even tell you the amount of Christians that I've met where they really believe that the only reason that somebody would have same-sex attraction is if they've been abused, which is so untrue.
Yeah, and with I want to be really careful around this but definitely there were people in her close quarters that also struggled with same-sex attraction. And by the way, I'm saying that because that was the rhetoric. Like, I don't believe in struggling with, like, that's not a thing. Like, you're queer, you're gay, whatever you want to identify as. I just but just for the context of like how we were talking about it at the time. So they were like surrounded with people that were going through this. So it was like very normalized. But at the same time, it was also like, well, it's the trauma. It's this. It's, this situation. And so, we were meeting in groups and pairs and working with people. And pretty early on, because basically what we were getting was everybody she couldn't see. Or like the overflow of like people coming to her because she was life consulting. So it was everybody that either couldn't afford her or just like she didn't have enough space.
Were you getting Bethel students, or who was the normal clientele? How do you think people were finding?
But a lot, like she was speaking, and we were like traveling with her too. So Like a lot of times it was from like her speaking or her going on podcasts. And at that point, like, and this was kind of new in the whole influencer thing. Like she had like, I don't know, 25,000 followers on Instagram. Like she was building up a platform. So people were reaching out to her. And then Nick and his friend had a podcast. They had like a male podcast, the one that, so we were also being sent people from there. And like women a lot of times listen to this podcast too. So it was kind of a mix, but I will tell you, almost 100% of the people we met with, we had no business meeting with. Like people, I remember this one girl, I mean, clearly she was like dealing with like having like a psychotic break. Like, and I would like go to Jess and be like, I think this person, I mean, like, I'm not a therapist. I don't know, but like they seem to be demonstrating like maybe bipolar tendencies and things like that. And there was never a, oh, well, then we're going to refer them out to a professional. Like we're going to refer them out. Cause like to me, life consulting was supposed to be like, you want to get more organized. You want to like,
Yeah, like, and I think that, and I'm sure we'll get into it more as we go along, but life coaching, if you're really going to be doing life coaching, if it were to be healthy, I don't even know if I want to argue for it at all. But the idea of, what do you want to, next steps in life, and let's pick some goals and stuff like that. But you should not be doing inner trauma work and dealing with people who are having mental health struggles, because essentially what you guys are providing them is a replacement for therapy, which is unlicensed. 100%. And, you barely got any training.
No, and, even... Except Brene Brown. And, oh God, my favorite thing is that we read Glennon Doyle's Love Warrior, and then Glennon came out as a lesbian.
We're going to pause here for part 1 of Victoria's story, but don't worry, part 2 is already up for you to go and listen to, and it would mean the world to me if you guys could please go and leave a positive review. And if you don't know, I also have a Patreon for Healedish where I do comment reading videos. So if you guys like that on my TikTok and Instagram, I do a 30-minute comment reading video every month on my Patreon, and I also have the option to hear the Healedish episodes 2 days early for $2. So I will link all of that in the show notes, and I will see you over there for part 2.